Good morning. It's Friday, December 13th, and I hope we all have good luck today and not bad luck. Within 5 weeks, Joe Biden's presidency will end, and with him leaving will also be the political appointees he brought into the government. They'll leave because he withdrew from the presidential race and ceded the mantle to Vice President Kamala Harris. The political appointees will be out of jobs because Harris was trounced in an election these elite Democrats thought she would win. But that will not stop Biden and those unelected officials from causing as much damage as they can in the remaining weeks. They are true believers in their left-wing policies and still cannot fathom that the American public rejected them in November. They believe the public is not smart enough to realize their mistake, and it's up to them, both Biden and his appointees, to show them they were wrong. Well, this week, Joe Biden gave his economic farewell speech at the Brookings Institution, a left-leaning think tank in Washington, D.C. I want to quote 2 points he made in the speech and wonder if he fully understood why his party lost last month. Quoting Biden, "Next month, my administration will end and a new administration will begin. Most economists agree the new administration is going to inherit a fairly strong economy, at least at the moment, an economy going through a fundamental transformation that's laid out a stronger foundation and sustainable, broad-based, highly productive growth. And it's my profound hope that this new administration will preserve and build on this progress," end quote. Well, within hours of his speech, his own Labor Department released the news that producer prices rose by a larger than expected 0.4% in November. That means prices were higher than that amount the previous month. Economists, those that he likes to say believe in him, who can really trust these brainiacs, have predicted the rise to be 0.2%. Breaking that all down, the Labor Department said the rise was driven by a jump in goods prices, which rose 0.7%. Hello, that means the things we have to buy cost more again. And Joe Biden wants the new administration to preserve and build on this progress. A better measuring stick is provided by the Strategas Research Partners. They're a wealth management firm and actually have to give real news to their investors. Quoting from their newsletter, Strategics Common Man CPI rose 3% year over year in November. The measure is comprised of items America must buy: food, energy, shelter, clothing, utilities, and insurance. It has exceeded the headline CPI in 41 of the last 46 months. More important, cumulative inflation exceeded cumulative wages by a significant margin in the past 4 years. In our opinion, this was a crucial factor in the presidential election, is one of the reasons unions are seeking and attaining a significant wage concession, e.g. Boeing machinists, longshoremen. A second wave of inflation is by no means unlikely, ending their report. These are real data points, not some mythical ones inserted into a speech for Biden to read. These are facts that real people have to digest and understand, and not some political pablum being handed out by these true believers. The second point that Biden made in his speech at the Brookings Institute is one that is a continuing theme in his administration, and another one that Biden and his speechwriters continue to ignore the real facts. Quoting Biden, "Over 6 million new jobs. That's new jobs, the most in any single presidential term in American history, the lowest average unemployment rate of any administration in the last 50 years, end quote. Well, Joe Biden seems oblivious to the fact that millions of jobs were lost due to government actions during the pandemic that forced businesses to either close for a time or lay people off. As the pandemic eased and government officials began to realize the folly of some of their draconian decisions, these businesses began to reopen and bring back people into the labor force. But according to Joe Biden, these were new jobs that he created. The irony of this claim should have been obvious to him, because a few minutes later in the same speech he said this, quote, "4 years ago, when I came to office, 3,000 Americans were dying per day in the pandemic they had a profound effect on our economy, not only ours, but around the world. Millions of Americans lost their jobs, were at risk of losing their homes. Hundreds of thousands of factories and businesses, yes, hundreds of thousands closed, just creating despair in our communities," end quote. Does anyone see the conflict between those two statements? First, he says created all these jobs, and then later admits because of the pandemic and government actions during the pandemic, millions of people lost their jobs and hundreds of thousands of businesses were forced to close. What is scaring me the most, and should scare every American citizen, is that in the remaining 5 weeks, Biden and his political appointees will try to enact as many new regulations as possible. We're already seeing such actions from the SEC and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Yes, that's Elizabeth Warren's brainchild of another government agency as they race to get new regs out. Republicans are objecting, and fortunately they have a tool to stop this foolishness. The Congressional Review Act permits lawmakers to strike down agency actions. That means that about 1,000 climate, education, healthcare, and labor regulations could come under this review. And that number keeps growing day by day with the latest announcements. It's no wonder that Trump has brought in Musk and Ramaswamy to rein in government, both in regulations and size. This has been To My Liberal Friends. Thanks for listening. If you enjoy the podcast, hit the subscribe button. And Biden continues to live in his own bubble.